Hello everyone, welcome to Renal Rehabilitation Laboratory. This is you, a physical therapist. This time, I'd like to talk about this question. Which is the best way for Japanese hemodialysis patients to evaluate malnutrition? Although there are many evaluation indexes about nutrition for hemodialysis patients, many people wonder which is the best one for Japanese hemodialysis patients. So, let's learn about it. Today, I'd like to talk about this retrospective cohort study, a new nutritional risk index for predicting mortality in hemodialysis patients. High rates of malnutrition in dialysis patients have been reported. Protein energy wasting is the state of decreased body stores of protein and fat mass, and is often associated with mortality, comorbid conditions, and reduced activities of daily living. To improve their prognosis, early identification of patients with protein energy wasting and interventional treatments for their nutritional conditions are necessary. The criteria of protein energy wasting include a serum albumin level of less than 3.8 grams per deciliter and a serum cholesterol level of less than 100 mg per deciliter. According to the JRDR in 2014, the mean serum albumin and cholesterol levels in dialysis patients were 3.60 grams per deciliter and 154.7 mg per deciliter, respectively. Assuming that these nutritional factors show normal distributions, it can be estimated that 67.5% of the patients have serum albumin levels of less than 3.8 grams per deciliter, and 6.1% had serum cholesterol levels of less than 100 mg per deciliter. The difference in the distribution of the patients between the two criteria suggests that the patients may be differentially diagnosed as having protein energy wasting on the basis of each criterion. Therefore, reference values of the criteria for protein energy wasting diagnosis of hemodialysis patients are required. For the early identification and treatment for patients with malnutrition, multiple evaluation of their nutritional condition by various nutritional assessments, including anthropometric, biochemical, biophysical, clinical, and dietary methods are needed. However, it is very difficult to evaluate nutritional conditions of all hemodialysis patients using these methods. At clinical setting, high-risk patients are screened first, then their nutritional conditions are slowly evaluated, and finally, malnutrition is diagnosed. The aims of this study were develop a nutritional risk index for hemodialysis patients, for screening hemodialysis patients with high risk of death on the basis of the concept of protein energy wasting using the audio data, and to evaluate the prognosis of these patients. After the identification of the main risk factors for 1-year death using the audio data of hemodialysis patients, a new risk index was developed. The GLGL data from 2008 to 2009 were used in this study. The exclusion criteria were patients younger than 20 years, patients on hemodiafiltration, or peritoneal diuresis, patients with missing barriers or outlier barriers of laboratory data, patients who had a limb amputated, and patients with a hemodialysis vintage of less than 1 year. The included subjects were randomly classified into two groups to obtain a dataset for the development of nutritional risk index and a dataset for validation need. The decrease in serum albumin level was associated with an increase in the risk of all-cause death. The cutoff of serum albumin level was 3.7 gram per deciliter for the young group and 3.5 gram per deciliter for the old group. The relationship between serum total cholesterol level and a risk of all-cause death shows a U-shaped curve. Low risk was observed in the subjects with serum total cholesterol levels between 130 and 220 mg per deciliter, and the decrease and increase in serum total cholesterol level were associated with an increase in the risk. The decrease in serum creatinine level was associated with an increase in the risk of all-cause death. The cutoff serum creatinine level for the female and young group were 9.7 mg per deciliter, and for the female and old group were 8.0 mg per deciliter, and for the male and young group were 11.6 mg per deciliter, and for the male and old group were 9.7 mg per deciliter. The decrease in BMI was associated with an increase in the risk of all-cause mortality. The cutoff BMI for the risk score was determined to be 20 kg per square meter. The relationship between NPCL and the risk of death was not shown clearly, so NPCL was not included in the risk score. A Cox proportional hazard model was developed for the evaluation of the parameter estimates of the nutritional indices, and a score was given to each index. Low BMI was scored 3, low serum albumin level was scored 4, abnormal serum total cholesterol level was scored 1 or 2, and low serum creatinine level was scored 4. The subjects were categorized into 3 groups on the basis of the risk score. 0 to 7 were categorized into low risk group, 8 to 11 were into medium risk group, and 11 or higher were into high risk group. The medium and high risk groups showed higher risks of all-cause death than the low risk group. About the medium risk group, adjusted hazard ratio was 1.96, and the high risk group adjusted hazard ratio was 3.91. For the prevention and early detection of malnutrition, the nutritional status of patients should be monitored regularly, because early diagnosis and correction of malnutrition prevent clinical exacerbation. After the screening, Detailed nutritional examinations are required in the patients identified to be at high risk of malnutrition. When malnutrition is diagnosed after ruling out or treating complications such as CVDs, inflammation, and cancers, nutrient intake should be improved by diet, oral supplements, and parenteral nutrition. This study showed that the cutoff levels for hemodialysis patients were different from those in the criteria for plotting energy wasting. Nutritional risk index detects patients with malnutrition with a high risk of death. That's all. Thanks for watching. What do you think about this topic? If you have any ideas, feel free to write it on the comments. See you next videos.